of the presentation is the presentation today will give first a background of how tobacco products have been taxed in recent years in Kyrgyzstan and what's the plan for the future. And then I'm going to talk about another plan that we are going to propose for the country, and that proposal will be the basis of discussion, because of course it's just a proposal based on a very limited number of information that we had access to. So if we could get good feedback today from you on how to improve the proposal to make sure that the target of Kyrgyzstan from the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Economy, in terms of health, life saved and revenue raised is reached. So I'm going to give you, the model is kind of an example of what Kyrgyzstan could do, but again, keep in mind that it's just a baseline, and we'd like to improve the model to make it much better fitting for the country. So to give you, okay, once again. What? Oh, the big one, okay. So we heard from Mr. Chechebayev already that Kyrgyzstan signed the FCTC in, I think, in 2006. So just 1 year after the FCTC was implemented by the WHO. So Kyrgyzstan was one of the first countries to agree with the WHO on the importance of reducing tobacco use in 2006. Since then, many other countries in the world have signed the treaty, but it's good to know that Kyrgyzstan, as is the case of many European countries, was one of the first. The FCTC has a number of measures, includes a number of measures that help countries to reduce the use of tobacco. Tax is one of them, and it's the most effective of them in terms of reducing number of deaths. Most effective in terms of, it's the most likely to reduce the number of deaths and tobacco use in a short amount of time, but also it has the extra advantage of raising tax revenue, which is not the case for the other policy measures that are included in the FCTC, such as smoke-free laws, advertising bans, etc. So today I'm going to focus on Article 6 of the WHO treaty, which focuses on taxes. So to give you a background on the progress of Kyrgyzstan in terms of reducing smoking in the country compared to other countries in the region. So the picture here shows the other countries of the CEU, the Council of Economy, the Central European Union, to which Kyrgyzstan belongs. As you can see in this graph, tobacco use was about 30% in 2000, but it's still 27% today. So the reduction in tobacco use in Kyrgyzstan is one of the smallest in the region at -12%. Likewise, it's very similar to the small reduction in Russia. Russia and Kyrgyzstan are the two countries in the region that have made the least progress in terms of reducing smoking. Other countries have made a little more progress, but still there is a lot of work to do because tobacco use is still very high. 27% of the population is a lot. It's one out of 3 persons in the country that are still smoking. So to give you a this is in part, this high level of smoking is in part due to the low price of cigarettes. So this picture gives you an idea of the price of cigarette in Kyrgyzstan compared to other countries in the region again. And the graph makes the prices of most sort of brand comparable between countries because it's presented in terms of international dollars rather than local currency units. So you can see that Kyrgyzstan has one of the smallest price for the most sold brand of cigarettes in the region, and the share of the tax, including excise taxes and VAT, other sales taxes, represents barely 51% of the total of the price. The WHO recommends that at least 75% of the price should be the amount of tax in the price of cigarettes. 51% is way below 75%, and again, it's one of the smallest in the region. So there is a lot of room to make progress in the country, because we are still 20 years later after the adoption of the FCTC by Kyrgyzstan, and that target is still far from being reached. So now the background on the tax system in Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan has made some progress in terms of tax systems and taxation, but still there is still a lot of room to make progress. Until 2014, Kyrgyzstan used a tiered specific excise tax system. So to avoid you with the technical details, basically it taxed non-filter cigarettes and filter cigarettes with two different rates. Non-filter cigarettes at a much lower rate than filter cigarettes. The WHO FCTC treaty recommends to use a simple, uniform system for all tobacco products and all cigarettes. Kyrgyzstan made that step in 2015. It unified the system to simplify it to just one tax rate instead of two tax rates. So since 2015, there is only one tax rate, which is a specific tax, a tax based on unit for all cigarettes. So that's a good measure. The second aspect is that it also agreed to increase that tax periodically, mostly annually, to account for at least inflation. So this gives you the evolution of the price of cigarettes since 2011 compared to the tax of cigarettes since 2011. So the red line here shows the inflation rate. It's the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. So it gives you an idea of how prices on average in the country for all non-durable goods have increased over time. So as you can see, the full line, the black full line is the tax on cigarettes. So since 2016, 15, it was unified into one single tax rate, as I mentioned earlier. That's why the dotted line and the black line become one line. So that graph shows clearly that the nominal excise tax rate has increased approximately at the level of inflation. But in real terms, the price of cigarettes has remained flat, which means that the affordability of tobacco products has not really changed since 2018-19. This is kind of a different aspects of the same figure. It shows the affordability of cigarettes for the most sold brand in the past 15 years in Kyrgyzstan. It's a little more, it might be a little more difficult for you to understand this graph, because the affordability here is defined as the percent of income that is needed to purchase a certain number of packs of cigarettes. Here it's 100 packs of cigarettes, so 2,000 cigarettes approximately. So that the higher that rate, which is called the RIP index, the higher the RIP index, the least affordable are the most sold brand of cigarettes. So as you can see in the red line here is the RIP, the affordability level. The RIP was very high in 2011, meaning that affordability of cigarettes was the smallest in 2011, and today after that it decreased significantly until the reform in 2015, when the affordability again decreased, represented by the increase in the RIP here. But since that date, around 16, 17, the affordability of cigarettes have remained flat. The difference between the affordability of cigarettes and the real price or the constant price of cigarettes is that the affordability takes account of inflation and income growth as well. But even if you take into account inflation and income growth, which makes people more able to purchase cigarettes, the excise taxes have not increased that much in Kyrgyzstan. So all of this, just to simplify, means that although there was a significant improvement made in 2015, almost no improvement in the tax system has been made since then. Oh, yeah. Not this one. Okay. So Kyrgyzstan, also, as I mentioned earlier, belongs to the Eurasian Economic Union since 2015, so approximately the same time as the tax reform in Kyrgyzstan was made. And it belongs to that union with 4 other member states, including Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and the Russian Federation. Under that union, there is an indicative tax rate that countries should follow every year. And currently, the tax rate is defined by the Russian Federation. And the value of that excise tax rate target is currently 35 euros. It's defined based on euros per pack of cigarettes. So if you as you can see here, the current value of that target is 35%, but the Russian Federation allows for that target to vary by countries between 20% above that target and 20% below the target. So, which means that the minimum would be 28% or 28 euros, and the maximum would be 42 euros. Currently in Kyrgyzstan, the tax rate on per pack of cigarettes is 28.9. So it's barely above the minimum of that target, it's not even at the level of the target. It's far below the level of the targets. Under current law, currently the country of Kyrgyzstan has a plan to increase the tax rate until 2027 under the 5-year plan. That tax rate will be 36.7 per pack in 2027. In that year, the target defined by the Eurasian Economic Union will be 45 euros per pack. So again, the tax rate in Kyrgyzstan of 36.7 per pack in 2027 is barely above the minimum, so similar to today. So what we propose here, this graph compares what is under current law and what is our proposal. So under current law, the tax rates on cigarettes would increase regularly to account barely for the amount of inflation from 2024 to 2027. There is no planned increase after 2027 because the current 5-year plan ends in 2027. So that under current law, the annual increase would be approximately 9% or 8% per year. In our proposal, we would increase the tax rate by at least 27% in the first year, 29% in the second year, and at least 20% starting in 2027. So we made a number of assumptions in the model to estimate the impact on death, the impact on consumption, the impact of revenue of current law versus our tax proposal. And then these assumptions are based on the information that we could get from the University of Cape Town, from the country of Kyrgyzstan, and input them in our model at the University of Cape Town. But again, it would be great to have much more recent information because we had a very approximative number on the current number of sticks that are sold in the country. We had also a very approximative number of what is the current prevalence rate of the most sold brands of cigarettes. For the price also, we obtained the price of most sold brands of cigarettes from the national statistics of the country of Kyrgyzstan. But again, we are aware that there are different types of cigarettes, cheap cigarettes, medium price cigarettes, and premium cigarettes. In our model, we have the possibility to estimate how consumers substitute between expensive cigarettes versus cheap cigarettes. Given that we did not have access on the price of different types of cigarettes, we had. Sure, yeah. So the model takes into account the fact that there are different prices and different categories of cigarettes: cheap cigarettes, mid-price cigarettes, and expensive cigarettes. So when the price of cigarettes increase for one product more than another, the model takes into account that there is substitution from expensive cigarettes to low price cigarettes. So the current graph shows on the left hand side, it shows the impact of the impact of current law on the price of cigarettes and the share in the price of cigarettes that is composed of tax. On the right hand side, you see the impact on prices and tax share under our proposal. So under current law, the price of cigarette would increase by 20% in nominal term from 2024 to 2027, but it would increase only by 13% in real terms, in constant terms. Under our proposal, the price would increase by 3 times as much, 61% over the same period, and it would increase by almost 40% in real terms. And real terms here, it means that it's in constant term, which takes into account inflation. So the tax share in the price under our proposal, which would be about 61% of the price composed of excise taxes and VAT, is still that tax share is still under the 70% target of the WHO, but it's still much closer to the target. So we remain below the target, but we would make much more progress compared to current law, because under current law, the tax share would only be about 41%. So the impact of our proposal on affordability would be also much better than under current law. Our proposal is represented by the red dotted line here, while current law is represented by the black dotted line. So what this graph says is that under current law from 2024 to 2027, the affordability of tobacco products would continue to increase, which is represented by a reduction in the RIP index, which again is the share of income that is needed to purchase 100 packs of cigarettes. However, under the proposal, the affordability of tobacco would decrease significantly. I mean, not significantly, but it would still decrease to go back to about still below, but it would make progress to go back to the level of affordability that was in place in 2011. Current law would barely change the consumption of cigarettes over the next 3 years. In fact, the consumption of cigarettes would slightly increase from 3.8 billion sticks to 3.9 billion sticks from 2024 to 2027. Sorry, the graph doesn't show the years here, but the 4 points here are 2024, 2025, 2026, and 2027. So basically, last year until the end of current law tax rates. So under our proposal, the sales of cigarettes would decrease from 3.8 billion today to about 3.336 billion in 2027. So that's a cumulative reduction of about 28%. Under current law, the consumption of the sales of cigarettes, which here represents the consumption of cigarettes, would increase about 16%, but it would decrease under our proposal by about 28%. It's good to bear in mind that the United Nations SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals of the SDG, recommends countries to reduce tobacco by about 30% over the next 30 years. Until 2030. So the proposal would get much closer to this target of the SDG as well by reducing cigarette sales by 28%. It's close to 30%. The proposal would also increase revenue much more than current law. It would increase revenue to 22 billion sum by 2027, which is about 17% more than under current law. It would also reduce the number of deaths. So the TETSI model has a number of includes a number of characteristics that also enable to estimate the number of smokers. That would the reduction in the number of smokers, the reduction of the intensity of smoking as well. So not only smoking decreases for two reasons. It decreases because there are less people smoking, less young people initiating smoking, but also because people who currently smoke less cigarettes than they used to. So the model takes into account both that intensity aspect and the prevalence aspect to estimate the impact on consumption, as well as the impact of death. So the proposal would decrease the amount of death, lifetime death, by about 40,000 persons. So that's a lifetime number. It's not an annual number, but it's still much larger. It's a reduction that is 33 times larger than under current law. So to summarize this presentation, it's clear that the Kyrgyz Republic made a significant improvement in the tax system in 2015 by simplifying the tax system. However, as you saw today, since then little progress has been made, and mostly because the rate of annual increase in the tax rate is insufficient to reduce enough the number of smokers and to raise enough revenue to support the reduction of tobacco use. So we require we propose to increase the tax rate by at least 25% annually in the next years, in the next 3 years, and probably even beyond that. But again, keep in mind that this is just it's just a proposal, and the goal of this meeting here is to adapt the proposal to what is best for the country. Maybe it's more than 25%, maybe it's less. That's something that we need to agree on. The other aspect of to summarize also, the country needs to keep monitoring and prices, revenue, and sales, and better exchange with researchers as well to information on those statistics to help us improve the model to make it much better fit for the country. And the last point that I wanted to mention is that currently, as we heard from Mr. Chechev, currently Kyrgyzstan bans. I didn't even know that electronic cigarettes and nicotine pouches were banned since July 2025. That's a good approach to some extent. Although the WHO does not say anything about whether ban is a good idea or not a good idea, it's definitely not a good idea for tax reasons. It's good to have a strong tax system or strong tax measures rather than bans, because usually when countries ban a product, it's just a temporary relief on the use of those products. In the long run, the products will always find a way to enter the country one way or another. That's why we tend to support countries to be prepared for the future and start regulating novel products strongly in the same way as cigarettes, to make sure that when these products eventually arrive in the country through illicit manners or other ways, they are already the young population is already protected. So currently the country taxes heated tobacco products. I don't think they are under the ban. The tax on heated tobacco products is a good tax. It's a tax based on the number of sticks, but it's smaller than that of cigarettes. And again, the WHO recommends to tax all products, regardless of what they are, at the same rate. So smokeless products, smoke-free products like heated tobacco products, e-cigarettes, Nazvai, which is which is I believe one of the smokeless products in the country, is also taxed at a very low rate. So there is progress to make also to align the tax on smokeless products and smoke-free products to the level of cigarettes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention.
Спасибо большое, уважаемая Estelle Dauchy. Очень интересная презентация. Как мы видим, что Кыргызстан не использует возможный потенциал по увеличению акцизных ставок. Он находится буквально на минимально низкой размере акцизного налога, даже по рекомендациям по Евразийской экономической комиссии. То есть в данное время мы держимся на самом низком уровне возможного повышения акциза, хотя у нас есть место для гораздо большего увеличения акцизных налогов. Спасибо.